Hey everybody, welcome to Thru Port Collective. Thanks for being here with us. We're appreciate you guys in the chat, and we've got with us today Marshal Arnold as our normal co-host, and we're missing one Cryss Smith today. He's having some medical things checked out, so we're thinking about him and hoping he can get back to us soon. And anyway, for our guest today, we have Mr. Ben Jackson. Applause, applause. And we're going to talk about some stuff. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but we're here just to basically talk about music creation and production and recording, mixing, performance, promotion, the whole bit. We like to run the gamut on this show. We're going to do it today, and Ben's going to have a cool topic he brought in for us that we want to hit on, and we kind of wander around a little bit too, and then whatever you chatties have to say. It's good to see you guys, and give us feedback, and if you have questions, please throw them out there, and we try to keep an eye on all that and forward them over and try to answer them as best we can. So, yeah, thanks everybody for being here. Let's do a quick little what's happening. Marshall, let's start with you. What's going on, man?
What's up? Hey, not much. Just kind of same old from last week. I've been working on that game sound design this last week. I think I'm about done with what I've been working on for them for this go, so then I can get back to doing my live rig stuff. And had to do a little bit of synth repair on my Kurzweil 2500X that I purchased a couple weeks ago. Then shipping to the pitch bender and the mod wheel so I needed to take it apart and swap in a new part, and it turned out okay. So I'm happy about that.
So that got all done.
Yes. That thing is heavy, man. So trying to move that around and then set it up on the kitchen table, unscrew it, everything.
That's a big old massive piece, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's heavy. I think it's heavier than the Moog 1. It's pretty beefy.
That's massive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I'm glad that worked out, man. That's all. Yeah, that's awesome. Too. And we're just gonna keep, you're gonna keep updating us rather about your progress on the game music, and then your live rig, which has just really been an ongoing big thing and really exciting.
Yeah.
So as we progress through the next few weeks, we'll get to learn more from you, man, which will be cool.
Yeah, and I plan on doing a studio tour here pretty soon. I haven't done one since 2021, I think. So I need to do a new one, and then we'll probably figure something out to where I can kind of walk around, maybe do something on the show here for everybody to show kind of everything. This is just a small sampling of what I have going on. Yeah.
Well, that'll be cool too. Yeah, you're the only one that's gotten away with not really doing it so far, right?
Yep. Yep. So yeah, we'll get it sorted out here pretty soon, though.
Right on, man. Looking forward to that. All right, and Mr. Ben Jackson, before you tell us what you've been up to, let me just give a brief introduction about you, and then please spew at will. But I've known Ben for 13 years. Is that about right?
Yeah.
I think it's something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm sorry, Ben.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Ben's a fantastic musician and drummer and keyboardist and composer, producer, wearer of many hats. And we met 13 years ago, and we had really similar likes, dislikes, similar goals, similar trajectories that we were looking at. And so we hit it off as friends, and we actually even shared not at the same time, but we both played drums for a particular country artist at one time, a few years apart. So once we met each other through yet another mutual friend, we just realized how much we had in common, and we hit it off, man. We've been great friends ever since, and we're happy to have you on the show, Ben. You've got a wealth of knowledge, and happy to have you come share it, man. This is going to be cool, and I love your topic. So tell us what you've been up to.
Man, a handful of things. The year kind of kicks off slamming this year. I'm producing 2 records at the same time right now, in development for 2 more with 2 different artists. So it's it's moving. And one of the albums right now is I've done this every year for the last, I think this is either the 5th or the 6th year. It's a multi-artist collaboration record for a charity, and it's 10 artists, 1 song each, and so it's kind of like making one record, and it's kind of like making 10 records. And
Yeah.
so the tracking for that starts Saturday, and that's honestly, once that hits, that's the easy part. Everything from reaching out to the artists and who we're going to get, and getting to the point where we can start tracking is the hard stuff. So the fun stuff's about to start with that. But yeah, been that and a bunch of writing with people and some other projects, and trying to make sure I've got some creative time and sleep once in a while, and that's been kind of the game so far this year.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
you've been a busy man. Your studio's been open there, that's where you're sitting right now, is at your residence studio, which is really a great facility, and it's been open for what, 3 years?
Yeah, this is the third, right? So the first night we did anything in here was you, and the first session we spent in the attic fixing the leak, and then that was right before COVID hit in 2020. So yeah, so 3 years now. But yeah, it's been it's good. It's allowed me to I feel like steer the ship more towards the kind of work I'd like to do, and I've tried to take advantage of that. Is the main focus is really try to create and make a living, but within a framework of things that actually excite me.
Yeah, man. I know that's been your goal, and you're achieving it bit by bit, I think, for sure. And that's another reason I think your topic is very spot on for this show in particular, to have you on, because it's very much what you're interested in doing, which is basically doing your best work. That's our topic, is doing your best work, and why that's important, and how you should spend your time, and on what constitutes your best work, So this is going to be a cool topic once we get launched into it, which I know we will shortly. Oh, I meant to, there is a piece of gear out there I saw, sorry, just in terms of talking about one or two pieces of gear. There was a thing called Taiga that's made by Pittsburgh Modular, I think. And it's kind of an all-in-one synth, like a complete synth voice. I don't know if this is it's new to me. I wondered if it was just new in general. It looks like it's got a blend of sort of East Coast and West Coast style synthesis, and it looks pretty cool. It lists for, I think, $800. So it's kind of like a freaky Mother 32. It's semi-modular, and but has a little more of a blend of things. I don't know if it's new. If anybody in the chat, if you guys know about it, it just came across my radar today, and I meant to find a link to it so we could maybe talk about it, but I did not. Shameful host that I am. But it's a cool looking piece of gear. Sounds pretty neat. Sounds pretty cool to my ear, and it does some interesting wave folding, and I don't know, just some different things. Some East Coast, some West Coast style. So, yeah, maybe at some point, while we're just sitting here and somebody's talking, I can look it up or something. But I think it's made by Pittsburgh Modular. Have not seen the vids on it yet, Paul says. Yeah, I think it might be a new thing. Anyway, it looks pretty exciting. It's a desktop style module, but a complete synth voice. And for $800 list, I mean, it does a lot. Pretty cool.
Is it big?
Nice.
Is it like the size of a Mother 32?
Yeah, it's a little larger than that. It's a little bigger than your mother.
Than your
mama. But not much. I mean, it's basically in that category for sure. Wagyu says it got unveiled less than 48 hours ago. So, okay, thanks for that.
I'd say that's pretty new.
That's pretty new.
Yep.
So we could maybe have a go at that later, once we want, or not. We're not always talking gearhead business here. We like to talk music and get into that. So cool to have Ben here. Yeah, and as far as what I've been doing, just to recap, not too much. I did update my plates, mutable instruments, Eurorack module. It's got a lot of really cool new tones available in it, including about 32 or so, or potentially more DX7 sounds, FM sounds.
What? Wait, what?
Your favorite?
Oh my god, bro.
Which it really isn't. However, being that it's not that exact,
Okay.
like the tones are pretty cool.
I'm sorry, am I outing you?
No, oh no. Actually, Marshall's the one here. Like he makes my disdain for the DX7 just like wither in the corner like a whimpering whim.
I cannot stand that.
There it comes.
It is awful in so many ways.
But you like to,
what else can I open up here?
I mean, here's the deal. I like FM, right? I just think that's the worst possible interface ever designed to try and use FM. So, and it's brown.
And that's
don't ever make it brown unless it's wood. If it's wood, you're cool, you know. But just paint it brown. What are you doing?
With some green buttons.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Well, the FM tones are cool, and I'm with you. It's not so much, I like FM. It's kind of a beast to deal with, and the DX7 is just, it's funny, and we have to poke holes in it.
On it. And the funny thing is, when I first started getting into synths, I don't know if I've said this on the air before, but when I first started getting into synths, I watched the Sonic State 20 greatest synths of all time ever. It's like a cheeky kind of countdown of like, the best synths ever, basically. Yeah. And the DX7 was on there, and they had one of the guys from The Cure just ripping it up. And so I thought everybody hated the DX7, and I made the mistake of making a video really slamming it and then literally smashing one with a hammer, and everyone... this was my lesson on YouTube, like especially with synths. Like most people searching for a synth online, they probably like it. So you're getting all these people looking for DX7 content, and here I am smashing one. Yeah, it didn't go over too well. So
the only thing you might have been able to do better is like you could be touting the Shure SM57 at the same time that you're trashing the DX7.
Right.
Which would be sort of fun because you just use the mic to beat the ever-loving out of the DX7, and then you hook the mic up and it still works and sounds fine.
Yeah, I think I said something on the video like, I'm gonna show you how to upgrade this DX7, and I got a hammer and smashed the inside one. It was already a broken one, so it wasn't like I broke a working one.
Is this still available?
No,
I was gonna say.
I took it. Well, it's technically still on my YouTube, but it's private.
Oh, because you got too much hate mail.
It got It started getting shared in like DX7 fan pages on Facebook and stuff, and I was like, oh,
that's amazing.
This was a mistake. But
I don't know.
I think it's that machine.
That's pretty precious.
That's good.
Well. Sorry, I guess about everybody else, but I'd love that if you would share that with the inner circle.
Yeah, send me that.
I mean, my points are all valid. It's terrible.
I don't know that anyone on this show at the moment disagrees. FM's a great form of synthesis, but that machine is. Yeah, you need to have. It's a piece of work.
You need to have adequate controls. That's why I always felt like software was the best way. Yeah, especially that Citrus synth from Image Line. That thing is perfect. It's a matrix of knobs, and you can modulate with it. It's perfect. That's how FM should be designed. Like that's the perfect interface.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Knobs. Yeah.
Instead of rectangles being connected with lines and one slider.
Right, one freaking slider.
That's always great. Thanks.
God. Yeah, and you think it's bad enough? I remember getting the DO5, the boutique D50 basically, and people complaining about what a pain that thing is to program. That's not anywhere near as difficult to program as a DX7. Like, it's not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah. Wagyu is saying backtracking to the Pittsburgh modular, the Taiga. It's 3 wave morphing oscillators, 3 wave folders, the Pittsburgh filter, some funky randomization processing, paraphonic mode, etc. for $7.99.
Yeah,
and nice. And I heard it. It does sound really cool. The demo I saw. If I didn't already sort of had a couple of boxes generally that cover that, I would be super interested in that. But being that I have a Mother 32 and that I have a Make Noise No Coast, which kind of is the same thing. It's got a little east, a little west in it, in a one module box, a complete box. Then I'd be super interested in that. But I mean, $799 isn't bad. I bet you could get that for at least $700 maybe. But pretty cool.
My XPO showed up today. I haven't had a chance to rack it in yet, but it's here.
Yeah. Very nice.
So we'll see how it does.
The Prismatic Oscillator XPO.
Yeah, I'm stoked about that, man.
I had mine for 2 seconds before it crapped out, sadly, and it sounded so cool. I was so excited to get to mess with it, and then it crapped out, and I had to go through the return process, and I'm still in the midst of that. I would like to comment how I was seeing a delivery truck, like a semi, the other day, that the company name was XPO, and I was realizing how that's sort of like an express delivery abbreviation, and how ironic that is that it's taking Make Noise like 8 months to get those out, and that they called it XPO. I thought that's pretty funny.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Yeah, it remains to be seen if mine is problematic or not. But I'm hoping not, because I am super stoked to have a mono voice that still does a stereo thing. I think that's going to be really useful.
Really cool.
That's kind of what sold me on it, was the sound of it, and then just the, not a polysynth. We're not splitting voices and throwing them. It's like it's one thing, but we're giving it some almost like Haas-y type effect, but just by changing the tone on it. It's pretty cool.
It sounds very, very cool. I'm super excited to get mine. Well, just when you're on the back of it, let me grab this module or something. Yeah. Let's assume this is it. When you're pressing the ribbon connector into the pins in the back, when you're actually connecting this to the XPO with those pins, be careful, because it will move this circuit board here to where it unplugs itself from the next circuit board down.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw there's only one post. There's like one post,
okay, so here's
a couple components. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we had talked about this before. That one post was an afterthought that they put in once they realized that this top circuit board was flexing too much and causing it to pull apart from the one underneath it. So you could tell that they've just put a post in it, but it's just on one side. They actually need another one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because after mine pulled out, it never worked the same.
Right. I'll be careful.
So just word to the wise, when you're pressing that in, try to make sure that the circuit board beneath it, that you're steadying it somehow or something, or else you may be sending your XPO back in XPO style.
Right.
Well, and speaking of gear that's taken a while to come out, man, I don't know if you guys have been seeing the demos for that Osmos, and I see some comments here from Synthetic. Looks like he's getting one. He'll have his by the end of this month. I pre-ordered one in 2019. I think I'm gonna finally get it in March. Sometime
it's been in the wings that long? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, because they announced the pre-orders, and then shortly after that, the COOF hit. So I don't know. And I was like, I don't know if this thing's ever even going to come out, but just in case, I'm just going to keep my pre-order in there because they offered a discounted price on it, and that thing is pretty darn cool. I was watching Ty Unwin on, I think it was the Synth Pro Network. They had Ty on there, and I was watching a little bit of him because he got one of the early ones. Man, I can't wait to get a hold of that thing. It looks so cool.
Ben, have you seen that?
I have not seen this yet, but I'm going to go look it up now.
It's
it's like a Poly Aftertouch keyboard
controller.
Yeah, but it's got that. I can't remember the name of the synth engine that's in there, and it's made by Expressive E.
It's kind of it's along the lines for looking for more expressivity, as like a Rolly keyboard would be. As
That's
like
what I was going to say. So it's
the
like a Rolly
Seaboard.
kind of vibe.
It's like
Yeah.
that, but it's
But
it's a
different
regular-
implementation.
Yeah,
Right.
because it's an actual physical key bed, so it looks, and you got similar tactile feel to a regular keyboard.
Yeah.
But you can kind of wiggle the keys and get vibratos and different modulations that way, and then it's got
Yeah.
multiple stages of aftertouch depending on how much pressure you place on the key, and it's
Nice.
polyphonic aftertouch too. So
Oh, cool.
it's pretty incredible. And one of the issues with the Rolly stuff that I never really cared for is like that thing doesn't give you any feedback at all. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yep.
So I always thought that was like, I just don't do good with those tactile key interfaces, or even like, what's that Arturia one? The little one? The Micro
Is it
Freak?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Where it has like a touch keyboard on it. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want that. I want like regular keys. So this is why the Osmos, I think, is pretty stellar. Is they've designed an actual keyboard, key bed with all these additional features and functionality. So
I'm with you. Yeah, it's a much easier jump. I never liked the rubberized keyboard of the Seaboard thing. That was just like the concept was cool, but in reality, it didn't work so good for me. But I think the Osmos looks like it would be the way to do it.
You have to learn a whole another way to play, and you will, to be fair, with the Osmos as well to get the most out of it. But initially, at least it's going to kind of respond like a regular, synth.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be much more like an easier jump from playing a standard keyboard to something that's really weirdly linear and rubberized, and it just didn't even feel necessarily like a keyboard. So pretty cool. So yours, you say it's on the way?
Well, I'm in, I think, one of the last groups from the pre-orders, because I pre-ordered it kind of late in their pre-order cycle or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'm in the March category. So because there's already people already gotten them, and I'm just like sitting there going, hurry up, guys.
Yeah.
But what's another month or two after you've been waiting like 3 years?
That's right. Just the anticipation will make it so much better, I'm sure.
It's just a bummer that it's taken so long, but at least it's they're coming out, man, and everyone seems to be just blown away by it. So, yeah. And then we didn't get to talk about this, but it's one of those things where I wish that they would implement this poly aftertouch stuff in more sense. And then of course Waldorf is doing a Mark II of the Quantum, which is going to have a poly aftertouch keybed on it.
It's an amazing thing to me. I love it. I love the Hydrasynth and the way that it responds using it. It's very cool.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, it's an interesting thing that's kind of an old thing, right? The poly aftertouch, and it just kind of went away. I don't know.
It didn't catch on. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if maybe they didn't have enough modulation sources available for it, or rather destinations, or both for that matter. But I wonder why it didn't catch on.
Maybe it's been too expensive too. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and just to cut costs, especially during the '80s. A lot of these when the digital synthesizers started coming out and things were getting cheaper, and you can buy like a Casio or what. I don't know. I think it was a race to the bottom, maybe. So they took out some features like that.
Yeah, likely. Well, cool, man. That's awesome. I'd be excited to hear what you think of it after you get it. You'll have to show us on the show. Show us on the show.
Show on the show.
Well, man, let's get to you again, Ben, about what you're up to and a couple things in our topic for the day. You wanna intro us as to why you were, why this became an important topic to you and how that came to be, and kind of tell everybody what your concept is about what doing your best work means?
Sure. I was so tempted to say no.
Okay, and cut. And cut.
No, it has So the doing your best work thing, it comes up everywhere if you're creating anything, really. But from the the perspective of music makers, um, I feel like we are, and this is kind of what I'd sent you. We're entering yet another new time for especially independent artists, and now every artist is an independent artist until they're not, and it's I think there's a whole nother level of expectation and uh, pressure as well as opportunity, almost maybe too many options a lot of the time. And I think some of that, what I've noticed is it's resulted in a mindset sometimes of not doing your best work because there's a um, fear of not having the right return. There's too much noise in the market for streaming now, or it's all about volume output, or there's a plethora of reasons. We can dig into any of them you want to, but I feel like the what I've kind of come up against is asking myself, from the standpoint of the stuff I'm making, and mostly the stuff I make with other people as a producer, what I'm chasing, why I'm still trying to level up, and what I'm really trying to level up into. Because there's as there's a number of paths you can take to try to. Oh, did you guys lose me? I
Nope.
feel like I might. Okay.
You're still here.
There's a number of paths you can take to try to navigate, uh, leveling up, and depending on what your goals are, and to cut to the chase, what I figured out is most of the time what I'm trying to level up into is the opportunity to do my best work. That's really what I find the most satisfying. I have to get paid. I have to make sure the lights stay on in the place. I have to you know uh, do the same things everybody that's a professional has to do to keep their business running. But for me, it's become sort of the goal is not to be recognized for something or make a certain amount of money or achieve a certain status. It's really to work with people that also want to do their best work, and have opportunities to walk away from projects when they're finished feeling like that's what we did, that we really did everything we could, and not everything we could that we felt like made sense or was safe or wasn't overboard. And so I've just been kind of looking more and more for opportunities to do my best work, and sort of what that means, and and noticing where the temptations to maybe not do that are, and trying to figure out little ways to swim around those things, and point artists I work with in that same direction of ultimately I feel like anything we're putting out, whether it's something you're doing yourself or you're collaborating with other people, you're in a band, or you're producing somebody else, it it's whatever happens inside the walls of the studio has to connect with someone. It has to connect with you and be authentic to you as the artist first, and that's the only way it has a shot of connecting with anyone else outside of that. And I feel like that is worth kind of doing whatever it takes to get into, and make sure that happens. Damn the torpedoes outside, kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of the summary of the mindset lately, and what I've been kind of trying to use as a guide to focus my energy a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's, it's for me, it's a similar thing where when I sit down and I'm trying to work on something, my goal isn't to create, a pop hit or whatever necessarily. Like I'm trying to make something original, and then I really focus really intently on the production, and I try and get it as perfect as I can. And it can take hours and hours and hours, and sometimes days and weeks. So that can be difficult though for you, for someone like you, Ben, if you're being contracted and you're you're doing this as a job. You got deadlines. I'm just curious, like how do you manage those types of things and still being able to present like the top notch quality that you are desiring.
There's the trick.
Right.
And we're, the truthful answer is I'm still trying to figure that out on a case by case basis with people. But I think the approach lately has been to be upfront about that from the outset. That really, and it is true. It's putting in whatever you're going to put in. Timelines and budgets are usually the two things that limit us, right? And to some extent, and Tim and I've talked about this ad nauseum for 13 years. Getting it done is better than continuing to work on it forever. You have to put stuff out, and so it does become a balancing act of doing your best work in this moment to represent this piece of music, and then doing your best work again and again and again, because we can get sucked into the vortex of never finishing, right? And that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
But balancing the time and the budget with doing your best work, I think it boils down to trying to work with people that are all in on their craft and sort of value the idea of having the opportunity to do their best work as well, and finding a happy medium of showing them what the value is in putting some time in on the front end to set up. It's like setting up dominoes to make a record, right? And if you really take your time to set them up, the knocking them down is effortless, and it's really satisfying. And I think it's just kind of got to be a case by case thing where you make your case to the people you're going to work with, and hope that you can get on the same page with that as much of the time as possible. But yeah, it takes a lot of, I think, front end discussion about getting everybody kind of there on that value system. And sometimes it's just not there, and you're not able to. And then in reality, it'd be great to be able to say, I just don't take the gig. But the truth is, what I do sometimes is say, okay, now how much do I need to get paid to just do good enough for you and walk away from this, and that happens in the real world. So those are kind of the things. I'm trying to minimize that one and maximize the amount of times that I get to do the best that I can.
Yeah.
And that's so much of a communication up front thing, even not only to whoever you might be working with, if you are working with someone else, but even just to yourself, if you're starting out a project, to have an outline and to have boundaries about what your expectations are to get the best work out of yourself. You kind of have to have that conversation with yourself too, don't you?
I mean, of course, and trying to figure out what that looks like, and it always looks a little bit different. It's not something you can sit down over coffee on the first meeting and say, oh, it'll be this, and it'll take this many days, and it'll be this. If that's happening, then whoever you're working with is doing your record to you instead of making your record with you, because it's going to take some time to figure it out what it is going to take. But yeah, finding those those bars of and you get better at it, I guess, the more you do it, is kind of hearing something and talking to somebody and getting an idea of where it's going to be. You kind of get better at more quickly gauging based on past experience what kind of mountain we're trying to climb, and about what level of energy that's going to take. But yeah, it to me it just feels like, for anybody that's trying to, whether you're trying to just make the best thing for you to be satisfied, or especially if you're trying to have a career doing music as an original artist, it just, to me, I feel like the job of the creating has to remain separate from the job of the content creator, the fan engagement, the building your fan base, the all the markety stuff, because you can take the finished product all the way through the maze And if it doesn't connect with anybody because it's not authentic at the end, because it's not really representative of your best work, it's a much bigger waste of time. Whereas if you put in a little bit more time and effort now and you really feel great about it, the viability of that thing is it stands up. You know, when other people hear it, they have a chance to connect with it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point because sometimes, I mean, when you become like super pro, right? I think some of these guys work, especially in like film and TV. Man, they've got probably crazy deadlines and they just pump stuff out. That's not to say that it's not their best effort, but I'm sure in many cases they probably wish that they had a little more time to do this or that to some of the stuff that they end up producing.
Yeah, I mean, I would think getting great at working on a deadline, I mean, that's always going to be a part of it, you know. And uh, but I think the hard part and the trick, at least what I've been trying to work on, is figuring out when that gig shows up, what it's going to take to really knock it out of the park and make sure that those expectations are sort of realized by everybody involved, you know.
Yeah.
And that way everybody's sort of on the same page with no, like we're trying to do this and we're trying to do it at this huge high level. It doesn't have to be expensive necessarily, but just we're really trying to dig in and go for it, and we're not creating content, we're creating art. We're saying something, we've got a voice.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only have I had the good fortune, I guess mostly, to work with some other people and come across that, but just even internally, it's interesting because I'm kind of applying it to how I feel about working on things myself and where I need to make that deal with myself and, you know that there is a boundary or an end to it, but not wanting to sell that too short. But that's a tricky sliding slope, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and actually, Tim, I have a question because I mean, you've been out and you've played lives, you know, multiple times. In terms of doing your best, you know, putting your best effort into your live setup. I mean, like, when do you decide like this is the best I can do, or are you just kind of this is what I'm at a time and this is it? Like,
Right.
how does that work?
Well, I've been brutally beaten by all possibilities, I would say, you know, because I've decided that it was good and everything was working, and then it didn't work whatsoever. So I've had that outcome. I've also, you know, and then I've had the outcome of, okay, you know, you stick with it, and now it's going to finally work. But it definitely took all of that very uncomfortable moments in between to get there, and just a whole lot of work. But I knew I'm after a certain thing, and I mostly know what that is. I leave room for me to discover some things and find out part of what I'm after may not be what I already knew, but can discover, and then go, oh, wait, I'm keeping that aspect. That's cool. And so that requires a certain amount of experimentation. But in terms of putting it together and knowing when I was happy, I mean, this is my second little live rig. Well, for keyboards, I suppose it's really my third one, because the Penn Jones Conspiracy band that me and Ben are both in, I started out with that, with just more traditional keyboard playing and synthesizers. And then when I got my home rig, I started doing synth jams just all alone. So that's kind of rig 2, really, which was basically synchronizing clocks, but using each individual pieces of gear, their sequencer. And so I didn't really have a sequencing brain. There was just a time clock, you know, MIDI clock brain. So that was kind of a whole different thing to do, and that was rig 2. And then the rig that's directly at the back of my room here, that little Euro rack that you can see at the very back, that was kind of version 3, where I wanted to have less actual keyboards involved and just more sequencing, a little more hands off, a little more random, little more randomized, I guess. So if I'm answering your question right, it's I usually have an idea of where I want it to head based on what the last thing was I did, but I don't always know exactly how that's going to materialize. I just try to stay open to it and figure that's how I get my best work done, because I mean I can put too many restrictions on it and actually miss something really cool that maybe would have cropped up. So I hope I'm answering.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I man, one of the things you said that I thought was key about that was that you know what you're looking for, right? If you kind of have an idea, you've got to have that vision. That's how you avoid the vortex, and that's why this can be a slippery slope, right? You can kind of go, you can always go, well, could it be a little better? And you know, we've all seen the meme with the skeleton over the console, and you know the deal like to take, you know, like we've all been the skeleton over the console, and
Yeah.
and that's definitely not what I'm aiming for or talking about. It's knowing what, you know, being able to get to a place where you can have a vision that's clear enough that you know when you're there, right? And like you said, there's enough undecided to discover some things along the way, and there's some sway in this vision, but you know when you've got it. And the best work part of it to me is then being, not feeling like I do know what it is I'm going for, and I'm going to get like 75 or 80% of the way there because really we're not real sure we want to risk it any further than that, you know. And it's like that's the most unsatisfying feeling in the world when you're creatively working on something versus, you know, just like, hey, just come on, damn it, put, you know, go a little further.
Well, I run into that sometimes where like I'll complete a track and I'll listen to it and I'm thinking, man, this is sounding really cool. Like I'm pretty happy with this. And then I'll go listen to like a reference track or something that, you know, one of my favorite artists or a cool song or something. And I'll compare and I'll be like, I got more work to do. Because as soon as you compare your work to somebody else's, that sometimes can be a good way to suss out a little bit more effort from you to get it just that little bit extra better, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Man. And on that note, Marshall, I had this thing I was trying to do for a while where I wanted to pick out stuff that was really inspiring to me and sort of write some music that reminded me of that, to learn some of the production techniques I didn't feel like I had, and what I found it less useful than I thought it was going to be, and less inspiring. But I ended up at a place with it where a friend recommended taking a single sound, a single part, a single element of something, and really digging into that. Again, doing your best work, because what I was doing was sort of doing like cheap demo-y versions of these really cool records and trying to get something started that I could co-write with someone, but it always sounded dinky and uninspiring, and I didn't even want to play it for anybody. And then when I kind of changed that mindset and went, what if I just like really dig into this one thing that I think is really cool and get it really cool? And I started doing that, and then invariably going, well, now if I put like this bass thing with it and this little drum loop now with 3 parts, this is like a vibe and a thing, and it's so much cooler to utilize those inspiring bits from other people to inform your next, you know, to discover new ideas, than it is to sort of chase exactly what somebody else has done. So that's just what you said made me think about that, and wanted to share it while I was thinking about it.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about, but also in the way that for me, like a lot of times what will happen is I've got everything, all the elements and the melodies and everything's there, but it's just like it's just not quite cooked right. You know, I got all the ingredients there, but I need to work on the mix, and I find it extremely helpful to get way better mixes when I listen to other stuff. Like it's not like I'm trying to copy a style necessarily. It's more like I'm listening for dynamics. I'm listening for the overall mix and how things are put together, and trying to match those similar. I guess I don't know how to say it. Like the end result. Like I'm trying to get to a level that if you were to play my track and then this track right after that, you would just be like, oh, cool. There's no indication that it's done by somebody who's not a professional.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's the ever chasing synth or mix reference, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Well, that's a real great. That sends my mind down a whole bunch of different lanes that are totally related, and the two that are mostly related is one that you do want to grab inspiration from other people's work, but you don't want to just make it an overlay that you put over yours, to where you're completely judging your thing, which will inevitably be in some ways different from the music that you're listening to. You kind of want to just get that diaphanous little floaty bit of inspiration and then run away, because it gets to be too much of I need to kind of do it like what they're doing, which leads me to the second part, which is, Ben, what you were saying, which is a brilliant way to find inspiration without getting bogged down in comparing yourself to someone else's work, is just to pick one aspect of what they're doing and really focus in on that, and then using that as a hopping off point and then building your thing around that, rather than trying to really emulate their whole thing, which just sort of inevitably happens, that you compare yourself real literally sometimes to other people's work like that. And that can be total buzzkill. You can go down in flames because that's not you doing it. It's somebody else. But you're like, but I really like that. So that means, I should do it just like they do. I mean, that's just a pitfall. I'm not saying we all do that, but.
No, I definitely do that. Yeah. I've lived that pitfall so many times that was kind of where this last go round of, let me put some stuff together that sounds like the kind of records I'd love to make, and that it was kind of, I was like, I've been down this path before. This is a dead end city, man. I remember this. But then, just kind of reframing it and going, well, what if I just take this one really cool thing that I really like about this, and then don't worry about the other couple things I put. The other things can come from me and things I already know and things I already do. And it takes it out of the vacuum of that other person's work being, it all has to be the same, and you can go, what? How would I? It becomes like what an artist should do, right? How would I say this instead of how do I say what they said?
Right.
And I'm slowly getting better at that myself. Yeah.
I will say though that there is, especially if you're new to the whole thing, sometimes like trying to do covers, I have tried several times with different things to try and reproduce something as closely as I could, just to see if I could. You know what I mean? And you learn a lot of different things by doing that. Not only do you learn like what kind of instruments were utilized. Let's say it's like a song that you liked your whole life or whatever, and you wanted to try and just recreate that thing, and you
something
find out
that used the DX7.
Yeah. Damn, I'm not gonna be doing those, but yeah. I mean, that's one of the things. Like you can, by getting into the mind of somebody else, sometimes it can help influence you and your own creativity as well. And learning some of these other techniques doesn't mean necessarily that you have to go out and just copy somebody, but sometimes it's going through the almost like a practice, right? Like, can I do the same thing this person did, or how close can I get to that as well?
Man, I love that. If you have to, like, I think there's a huge place for that. And I remember watching the mixer Tony Maserati talk about learning to mix at something, and he mentioned that it's like playing an instrument. You have to practice. Like you have to sit with the tools and isolate a certain thing and work on it and figure out what it does and what it doesn't do and how you would use it and how they did things. And that's totally a great way to do it. You know, when you're making your own thing and it's like you're trying to use all their ingredients the same way is when it becomes, I feel like, a pitfall. But what you're talking about is absolutely as a practice exercise. You can get really, really deep and really well informed by emulating some other stuff for sure.
Yeah, and that can help you produce some of your best work, I think. You know, because
Definitely.
no one's born a mixer, you know, or
Right.
a producer or a songwriter. Like, we all take inspiration from these other artists that we've, you know, heard. So
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, you just got to fill. It's a great way to fill your own well up, is to emulate other people and learn what they're doing until it gets to that point where you're not even conscious about it anymore. It's kind of just part of your, I don't know, it's just part of what your go-to way of thinking about music. But now you overlay what you want to do with what you know now how to do.
exactly.
Yeah, because you can't just come out of a vacuum and start creating music. Yeah, there has to be some sort of input first, some sort of well filling.
You can, but most likely you're probably not going to be
Well, I mean,
making the best sounding stuff.
you can, yeah.
I remember my drum teacher in college. I had a jazz degree as a drummer, right? So it's all improvisation. And I remember him telling me once that I was trying to play. You know, he's very big on don't just repeat the same licks. You know, improvise in the moment. And I was going for stuff and just crashing and burning, and asking about how do you do this? And he said something. He goes, "You're not going to play something in the moment that you've never played before and execute it right. Like, you have to practice and develop a vocabulary. You're not going to say something that you don't when you don't know what the words mean yet and you don't know how to pronounce them. Like, you have to work on the vocabulary before you can then sit with other musicians and have that conversation, that improvisatory conversation. And I think that's kind of what you guys are both saying right now.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, you have to have the language there to speak, to use the words, and then how you assemble them is one thing. Nobody's really reinventing the wheel. It's just going through your filter that can make it radically different from somebody else's filter, even though you're using the same basic, tones and whatnot that we all use. So that is a cool thing about it. And I just love that idea, Ben, of you take away some of the enormity and what you would look at and be afraid to do if you just pick up one thing of it, because then you're not trying to get the whole thing done. You're just starting with one little bit, and it takes away a lot of that inhibition, I think, or that you have to live up to that whole picture rather than, well, wait, I just kind of dig this sort of synth-based approach right here. What do I do with that? And then all of a sudden, you may be off to the races. Most likely, you get a little inspiration out of that, and not feel that the necessity to try to recreate the whole thing, unless that was the exercise that we were talking about. But that's a different thing. Trying to write your own stuff out of that little bit, I think, is a brilliant piece of information for everybody, because we all get overwhelmed with not feeling that we're good enough, and then listening to somebody else's thing and then just going, well, I don't know, I can't.
No,
I can't do all that, and I don't want to.
Well, we did it. You and I did it with Ben not that long ago on a Penn Jones writing session, right, where he brought in a reference of what was it, a Death Cab song that he was kind of into?
It was. That's right. Yeah, Death Cab for Cutie.
And I was like, all right, let's do something. And you were kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to chase this down. Like, that's not really our thing. And I'm like, well, let's just take the tempo. Like, we could use something at that tempo. Like, let's just take that tempo, and then not use live drums. We'll program something on the DFAM, and I think we used like DFAM and Data Bender, and that became 3/4 of the track, and the rest of it's like Ben and like 2 synth parts, and it sounds nothing like, nobody's ever going to listen to that and think, oh, right, they got that Death Cab song. It's right. We took the tempo. That was the only thing we took. Was like, oh, we haven't done in a while. We haven't done something about this tempo, about this groove. Let's just lift that one little piece, and it takes on its own life after that. And Those are
love
always the
that.
most fun.
I love that
Yeah.
example because I wrote a track
Perfect.
called Dark Purpose. And in that track, there was kind of going on in the background an element that I totally borrowed from another track. Now, the idea is that you put a phaser, but you exaggerate the phaser and just drown it in reverb, and it creates this kind of like really euphoric kind of sound. And it's something that I had heard in another track from the early 2000s, and I just kind of was kicking around in my brain. I was like, I'm gonna try doing something like that. So you wouldn't know that it came, that's
Right.
it's not an exact copy, but it's a similar,
Yeah.
thing that I was trying to kind of go for.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's its
Yeah.
own thing. It grew into its own song,
That can be a fun practice exercise too. Just like taking anything, it can be even that. Like yours is like an effect or a combination of a couple of effects, and it's just a jumping off point. And it's like whatever that inspires you. At least it's sort of like if you're writing, prose, it takes the blank page syndrome away. It's like I don't know what to do. I can do anything, and you're going, well, now I've got the number 3 and the color purple, and that's sort of where we're going to live. And let's see what we can do with the number 3 and color purple instead of I don't know, I could do anything.
Right. Yeah, and
Huge.
it's one of those things that just kind of comes to you sometimes, especially if you listen to a lot of music. You're going to have certain things just kicking around in your brain, and I would say try and do something with those things because you never know what you'll end up with.
Super creative, and yeah, that's the trick is then kind of not kind of rounding back to the best work thing is then when you're on that train, not second guessing if it's worth taking all the way there. It's like, oh, I gotta, well, but the algorithm tells me I should put out a track every 5 minutes and do so many things, and so let's just finish this one and move on to another one. But it's not really like what I'm not really resonating with it yet. But let's go ahead and like let's not put all of our chips in. And it's like, yeah, I think you should put all of your chips in every time, and that way maybe somebody else like it's sort of the simple idea of why should anybody else care about it more than you did,
Right.
and that's kind of the like, yeah.
Why should I care about it if you didn't?
Right. I think you can feel that through really authentic representations, right? You can totally, we hear that stuff, we know.
That's one of the best parts about listening to music for me is like, just you, especially as somebody who does it, like you can tell like this is a lot of work, a lot of effort, and you can tell somebody's really working their butt off. Or a group of people even, right? If it's a band or whatever. Yeah, that's the, how do you say it? I'm drawing a blank. My brain's dead. Too much DX7.
Too much DX7. I just know like what when people hear something and they go, man, that's fresh. I know what they're saying is like, that's coming from a real place from the people that made it, and that's it makes it hot, it makes it interesting, it makes it a little different, but also very much something they can just sink their teeth into right away. And but it's a little bit different, and it's authentic, it's fresh, it's like, wow, that's great.
It's like,
and that's that bit right there.
Being in awe of the mastery, right? That's kind of I think what I was trying to say. Like just when somebody's at expert status, right, and you listen to some of their stuff and it's like, whoa, you're just blown away sometimes.
Totally. And it's, I think the you kind of know if you've it takes a while, it took me a while to figure out like that, to when it was time to climb out of the vortex of I'm just not sure when it's done thing, but you get to a point if you do enough of them that you do know, and as you're going like, well, this could really use like a little bit like different drum sound, and we could really like if I had a couple hours and I could rearrange the mics, put a different kit up, get the sounds, that we would build a whole kind of different thing, and it would really, the production would really support the singer or the melody or the feeling that we want. But we're kind of on a time budget here, and we're on a money budget here, and it just doesn't really like. And that's the kind of stuff I'm trying to cut out as much as possible. It's like, hey, do that thing so that song doesn't sound like you almost did what you wanted to. Right. So you really did what you wanted to. Why would you stop short right there? Because it will never sound like the thing that you are so inspired by. Because those guys did do that. They took a minute and it sounds like what they meant to do.
By the it's sort of the accepting the way of the philosopher mediocrities.
Yes.
I saw that one the other day. I had to repeat it. I thought that was good.
What did
I see your guide is mediocrities.
The enemy of the best is just okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
You really did something.
Right.
Yep.
And
I still ascribe to
totally
finish is better than perfect.
Averageness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really like what you're trying to do. I really like what you're trying to do.
Tim, one of our former mutual bandmates, used to say, "Well, that's one of the gigs we've ever played."
Yeah. I love those sort of non-committal, tinged with meaning, but like, yeah. Yep. Of all the gigs we've ever played, that was certainly one of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
like, yeah. Next.
Yeah.
I the thing though is that it probably, you do certain thing for so long. I'm sure it's for some people it probably turns into that.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Around here, I've heard it called "You've been Nashville'd." So that person has kind of lost their soul and lost their way, but they have a bag of tricks, that they can still work from. They've been Nashville'd. Certain players, in particular, certain musicians, certain creators. Yeah, that guy, man, he was great, but unfortunately, he's been Nashville'd. But that's just, it's just one way of saying it, but like, it definitely is exactly what we're talking about.
We got Cryss Smith jumping in the chat.
Live.
Oh, nice.
He's in one piece. Say, Cryss, hope things are going well, brother. We'll see you next week. Thanks for hopping in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Say hello.
But yeah, I mean, Tim, you do a great job of that, and you lead by example with that, because the stuff that you've put out since forever, but you've done a solo record of songs with you as the vocalist. You've done a couple of EPs worth of synth music, and all the jams, and now the live thing. And it never feels like you almost did what you meant to do. It always feels, and we talk about it, you're like, yeah, I spent way too long on this when I was up till 3 in the morning doing it or whatever,
Right.
But it's like I've told you before, your winter solstice thing is like that is the December playlist for me, and it has been for however many years, 4 or 5 years now. It's like it's great work, and it's representative of, it's got a sound and a meaning and a voice, and so yeah, you do that. Like, I think most of us that do this kind of thing, that work on our own stuff, we do try to make sure that we're doing our best work, but it can still be tough, especially now, because there is a lot of external pressure to pump out content, and there's also a lot of noise saying, well, with streaming or with this or with that, it really doesn't matter. You're not going to, this old metric can't happen anymore, or this old thing can't happen anymore.
Right.
So just pop it. It doesn't, there's too much shit out there and nobody cares anymore. So just what's the point? And it's like, well, yeah, but people are still doing it, and the ones that connect are still connecting, and that's not going to change.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
yeah. That's a great point. And thank you for the compliment, by the way. But yeah, well, I mean, that's the bit. I mean, you're just trying to do your best thing, and so uh, I didn't even know what my best thing was when I started doing the Winter Solstice record. I just started hopping into it, and things just started pouring out, and I thought, well, this is fun, and I didn't listen to anyone else's stuff the entire time I was making that record. So not that I didn't need to. I'm sure I did at times, and not that I didn't hit the wall, but it sure was a blast to just sort of do it my way, so to speak, and feel good about whatever that was at the end of the day. That I like that. I personally actually like that. And that was the litmus test for me. Was just like, I actually do like that, and so hopefully someone else will too. Now there's the roll the dice part, but yeah, that's been a pretty well received record. Well, and Marshall, I mean, on the same note, like you've with just even just with building your live rig and going after this particular way of doing things that you're doing for your live music that you've been working on for how many years?
Well, I had the idea like a long time ago. I've been trying to brainstorm this idea and to make it come true for like 20 years. So that's a vortex you probably don't want to be in. But the thing is, with what I'm trying to accomplish, I've never seen it done. So that's part of it too.
Yeah, and so it's got a long fuse on it, but see, you're sticking that through. You're hanging with that because you're still not there quite yet, and you're gonna see it through, man. You're gonna get it done.
Oh yeah. Well, the nice thing is that it actually is there. It's just now I've got to put in the effort to complete it. So before it was a limitation of what kind of, first of all, like how much money do I have to invest into that? And then secondly, does the technology even exist to make it work the way I have it in my brain? And those things didn't really come to fruition until a few years ago.
Yeah.
So
that's definitely a great example, though, of doing your best work.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where it's like when you realize that like this is all coming together and it can happen, you go, oh, this is awesome. I get all excited about it.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, finally some payoff. Well, I'd be remiss without mentioning too, Ben, that you have an artist named The Great Northern, and you do solo synth music as well. You've got 2 records out now, or 1 full record and an EP. That's right?
That's right.
So,
yep.
And that's doing really well. A small label picked you up. You've gotten some success. You've gotten on some playlists. This is all part of that same sort of thing. You and I just ended up sort of doing a similar thing. It's so interesting and cool, though. I love it. Can you tell us a little bit about the Great Northern? Because that's definitely going to be applying our topic. And
Sure, yeah. Thanks, man. And obviously, like, I blame you frequently for my synth habit because it's true. You sort of were getting into some stuff, and we very much have similar tastes. And so when you started getting excited about it, I was like, what? This definitely looks like something I would enjoy. So thanks for the first hit of crack on that one, pal. But yeah, I think I may have said on here last time, I started that project just as a way to get to familiarize myself with using synthesizers in a more in-depth way, because I had a couple and I didn't feel like I'd done a great job of learning my way around them, and I thought writing music with them would be the best way to figure it out and inspire myself to figure it out. And so yeah, a couple things. There's another record came out last week, and I'm excited about it. It sort of stays in the same vein as the first one, other than there's a lot less soft synth or strings, or there's a good bit of orchestration on the first one, but this one's a lot more modular synth based. and analog synth filled in with some real piano and Rhodes through some pedals, and it was just fun to explore some sounds and find little inspiring jumping off points again, and then try to kind of figure out what could happen. And for me, it is an experience, because I don't have a lot of expectations when I go into those records of it needs to fit here, it needs to make this work or whatever. They're for me to work on creativity. And so it's really, this last one was really fun to do and get into the Eurorack thing, and sort of, as we've talked about before, like have sort of an idea, a wisp of an idea of what you wanted to make, start doing what you think it's going to, putting together the pieces that you think is going to make that, and then at some point giving yourself over to what it's actually doing and taking new inspiration from that and figuring out how to incorporate that into the piece has been really fun. But yeah, I like to approach it the same way as far as arranging, and I wanted it to be more minimal this time, and really make certain parts, fewer parts, stand out and matter more, which is something I'm doing in my non-instrumental records for other people too. And so yeah, I'm pumped about it, and yet I sit here and try to talk it up, but I'm also in the back of my mind going, yeah, but we could do this better. So on to the next thing too, how to do it better next time. But yeah, it's fun. It's been great.
It's awesome. Yeah, what you've done is very cool. And I guess your best in doing it in the moment is your best at that moment, but that's a moving target, right? So maybe in a year your best is in a different place, but as long as you're still going for the best at that time.
That's kind of how you stay out of the vortex, right? Is you accept that your best, it doesn't have to be your best for life. It has to be, it's your best right now, and enough to know that this is working, and I like this, and let's move through that. And then you get to the end of the experiment of putting a whole piece of music together, and that's the only way to get that perspective all the way at the end at the mix or the master of going, I would change that. Like that, I could probably tweak a little bit better the next time around. You go and you change that, and it is a little better, and you find the same thing at the end. There's another thing that you could probably improve on, and that's the learning part of it. I really, really enjoy. That's something that keeps me coming back for sure.
And there is always that situation where you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes stuff's wrong, but you don't really know it, or you don't know how to address it as well. And sometimes you pick those things up later on, and you're like, oh, and then next time you get to apply that, and it's you just add that to your repertoire.
Absolutely. Well, this might be a great hopping off point if since Ben and I are both in a band together that do this sort of thing, and we were just talking about how we've sort of influenced each other. Could we play a piece of a song that we did live at one of Ben's thing? He has this songwriter sessions series that he did at his studio, where it's all about building community, and he got several artists to come in and do 3 songs each, correct?
It was 9 artists, 3 songs each, to 27 performances total the first time around.
Yeah, so 27 different performances to mix and to do, but to build community and to get people excited, and so we were fortunate enough to actually be a guest on your concept, which I know is almost like a conflict of interest for you, but you're worried about it.
Show, I'll do what I want.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and that's kind of why I feel like it'd be sort of fun. If Marshall's cool, if we play a little bit of this song called "Anchored" that we actually did on that series.
Absolutely. You want to bring it up, Ben?
Sure. It will also be on our next record, I believe.
It will be.
Okay, I have it up, so I'm going to do the present. Let's see. Yeah. Tell me when you've got that, man, and I'll hit it.
Looks like it's here. It's ready to go.
Here we go.
saw the new you in the window, looking like you found the piece that you were missing. Didn't take me long before the notion settled in that it was me holding you back. I've been telling myself it wasn't. It was good to see you with that spark you had in your eyes, like the first time that I saw you, well before they turned gray. And at the same time made me realize I'm walking lies and something needs to change. It's a shame how time left us, but I loved you on the way down. I loved you all the way down in a game of push and shove. I loved you all the way down, but I really dragged you down.
Yeah, it's good.
Nice, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah,
It's excellent.
a nice ballad that we did in a different way with just the three of us like that, because Ben's usually playing drums, but that's another another bit that we kind of came up with in the way that we're talking about. Sometimes we just say what kind of song do we need to try to write, and then we try to do it. But it was cool to have. It was fun for me to just kind of be the piano guy and then let Ben like play some bass and some pads and some melody and then Benjamin out front. He eventually does start strumming his acoustic on the next verse, which just helps. It helps to build the track a little bit, but it keeps it just three guys making the noise.
Yeah, and that one's fun. Like the delay on the piano is actually live from Magneto, right? That was like patched in, and the little pulse, the kick pulse is a DFAM sequence from Bloom, I believe, and all that was live. Like, there's no overdubs. That's not we didn't go back in afterwards and like layer it. That right. All sort of was how we did it, and that was a fun challenge to do. I did that on a handful of things for that series with the modular out there on the shelf, and just kind of putting a little bit. It's like acoustic plus, like kind of broken down with a few little tasty things thrown in there, and that one I think came out really great.
Yeah, it sounds excellent, guys. Do you have a link to that we might be able to share in the chat, maybe, for everyone?
Yeah,
to listen to the full thing.
I absolutely do.
Yeah, no vocoder on that particular one. Paul. Well, it's way down in the mix.
It's all the way down.
That's how far it is down. That's right. There's another one of those right there. Yeah, there's another one of those sayings. It's just down in the mix. It's all the way down in the mix.
Marshall, I threw it in the private chat. I don't think I have access to the public comments.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Let me see.
I'm merely a guest.
Merely a guest. Let me see if I can add it in here.
That's hilarious. Yeah, but the Great Northern, everybody check that out, because that's some great music and very indicative of all the stuff we've just been talking about. So, there it is. There we go. There's
it in there for you guys.
Pin Joan links. Appreciate that.
Check that out, everyone. If you want to have a listen to that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Subscribe to their channel.
There's a whole bunch more than that on that channel, but yeah. Well, cool. I mean, we're getting kind of close to wrap up time here. Anything? Well, Mr. Jackson, is there anything you'd like to talk about for a few minutes, 5 minutes or so, and tell us what's coming up?
I think we're gonna do another round of the East End Songwriter Sessions. So like what we just saw, I think I'm going to change the format slightly. I'd love to get feedback on that from everybody watching too. I think what we're going to do is, instead of 3 songs an artist, I'm thinking of shifting to a single song per artist, but also having the artists in the live room kind of surrounding us like a living room style thing, and then having a little bit of a Q&A back and forth about creativity and music making, and so it wouldn't just be music, but it also be some discourse and perspective of music making, because I feel like that might be something that's really useful to people. And again, the goal being building community. I want to make sure we're bringing something that the music community finds valuable. So that's one thing coming up. I've got a project on the same label coming out that I did as a collaboration with Tim, our friend Kendra Chantel. So it's sort of she had the idea of doing sort of chakra meditation chant stuff, and we took her vocals and some of those things, and for lack of a more finessed way of putting it, Euro racked the shit out of them, and made some really cool sort of meditative tracks with her singing lyrical stuff over the top, and that's coming out in March. And then yeah, just a handful of sort of my standard, which is sort of singer songwriter indie rock projects coming up. So it's shaping up to be a really good, cool, creative year, and I feel like leaning into trying to do my best is paying off. So I'm going to keep doing that.
What you got going on, Tim? You are muted, I believe.
I do. I was
Now
muted.
you're back.
I'm back. I had a bit of a cough, and I didn't want to, have that go across the microphone. Oh, I'm still working on, a couple of things. I have a lead on a venue that I may be able to get our electronic community into for one day, or rather 1 day a month, to meet and play. I mean, obviously it can be sort of a hang too, but mostly to have 4 or 5 different artists on it once every month, just a place, a residency, for us to go play. So I have a lead on that. I'm excited about that possibility, and if this one doesn't work out, then I will press ahead and look for yet another place. But I do think that Nashville's capable now of chance happening. Yes, sir, NIMS. I do think that Nashville is now capable of supporting that and interested in supporting a night a month, and everybody showing up and really being behind it and caring about it, and just being there, so that we could have a place like that. It's hard to find. It's hard to rely on venues, really, but your alternatives kind of start to be a thing where you have to maybe pay a dues or something and go somewhere. There's lots of potential options for this. So I'm just exploring it. We'll see. I feel pretty good about this possibility, but you never know. And it's a flaky situation, or rather industry sometimes with these kinds of things, because club owners can be, I'm sorry, but they can be a little less than honest or forthright. And we just need somebody that'd be solid, and then I think we could get a lot of people in there 1 day a month. So that's coming up. Other than that, I've been slowly building 3 different other solo records, which I'm looking forward to. And then the Penn Jones Conspiracy has a record that'll probably be out around summer, I'm going to guess, with any luck at all. It's 11 new songs. 11 new songs, I believe it'll end up being. So excited about that. What else is happening? I guess that's kind of mostly it. I think I'll do some more solo live synth stuff, since now I'm tooled up to do it, and things seem to be working.
Famous last words.
There, inevitably with every show something doesn't work, so it is always about how you land on your feet with that.
Sure,
but it's not every show where absolutely everything doesn't work. So
right.
Now that I've had that one, I feel like cool. It's going to be okay. But yeah, mostly that's it for me, which is enough.
Yeah. When I've got the same stuff, man. Like I gotta get that live set together, and I need to streamline the rig. That's going to be, I think, the harder thing, more than actually creating more songs with that gear. The harder thing is going to be streamlining that setup to where it can be easily broken down and put back up, and that's going to be a nightmare, I think. But that's on my to-do list to try and get that worked out, and obviously get the songs written and do some performances on YouTube. And I'm excited, man. And we'll see how this game soundtrack goes. It's been a little bit of a slow process because it's an indie team and it's only a handful of people. So I mean, it may be a while before any of that comes out. But it is a fun and exciting thing to do because it's completely different in a lot of ways than what I would normally write. So I find that an interesting challenge. And I'm excited to see how that whole project comes together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool and a great opportunity. And it'll probably inevitably happen that some of what you do and learn from the one thing will sort of bleed over and overlap into what you normally do. And that's why it's fun to do those kinds of things, I think, because it does give you perspectives and inspirations and ideas that wouldn't come for just one of the other things by themselves.
Yeah, it's about stretching those legs. You know what I mean? See what you're capable
stretch those legs
in some of these other genres, right? So, and I've always been fascinated with game music, like specifically, even from the early days. With the NES and not so much Super Nintendo. I wasn't really into the Super Nintendo, but the NES, that the chip that's in that, I always thought it was really cool. They were able to get some really cool sounds out of that. And you see now it's like it's full on music that they can put in these games now. I mean, think about that. Like they used to use a hardware dedicated synthesizer chip for everything, and now you can put whatever you want in a game. So.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, that's really cool. It's a real viable way for electronic musicians to make some money and do something cool, I think. So, yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. And, yeah, I mean, I think I can, especially with the original NES and, like, the Sega Genesis and stuff, I can hear all the individual parts still of that. So that stuff's burned into my brain forever. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you really did. Yeah, that stuff's awesome. It's great.
When you think about, like, somebody had to sit there back in the 80s and, like, try and figure all that out and then make these interesting little songs with only, like, 4 channels of audio.
Right.
And sometimes even less. Like, wasn't the C64, I think it's only a handful of channels, right, on that?
It probably. I don't know. I don't know. I can't imagine that they had a whole lot to work with. Those things.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Because I've seen them do stuff. Well, they got pretty trick with the way they would program the sequences to where the even though they were limited to only a handful of channels, they would actually have the waveform change in between. So it's like doing really crazy stuff, like with just that limited set. Like it really forces you to kind of think outside of the box.
That's super. Yeah.
It's one of those things where, somebody's having to put their best effort into figuring all that out,
Yeah, absolutely.
Take it for granted, but yeah, that stuff is sort of iconic, and somebody sat there and figured out how to make the most out of what they had to work with.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Ben, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
It was great to have you on the show, and it was a great topic, and it was just fun to chat about stuff and whatever came up. And Marshall, always good to have you on here and your perspectives and thoughts, and we appreciate the chat, folks. And they had some good input and some thoughts and a couple of questions too. So we appreciate you guys very much for hanging out with us. We're very casual about the form of this show, but we do try to deliver some information we think is important and that you may find interesting and important. So, even though it's kind of a casual format, we do try to deliver some quality product.
See, Wagyu's got us covered here. That's SID chip, 3 channels plus a PCM channel. So that was all they worked with there.
Oh, wow.
Crazy.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
And he has
I love it.
5 channel, much more limited than SID in general. Interesting.
Crazy.
All right, guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Ben. Appreciate you being on.
Thanks for having me again, guys. It's great talking to you.
Yeah, fantastic. Hang on for a second after we're done, if you would.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you again next week. And if you haven't, do all the things if you don't mind. Subscribe if you like us. Like us if you like us. Comment
if you like us.
If you like us. Do all the things. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next week. So long.
Bye, guys.